guys, welcome to the newest episode of The Bearded Gamer Show. Now, as always, I'm your host, The Bearded Gamer, Chris Arnone. Let's get right into that good news, bad news. So first up, I want to talk Resident Evil 6. I'm just putting this straight up in the news category. It's not really good, it's not really bad. Now, I'm excited for this game. It's on my top 10 list of most anticipated games. But it's a little low on that top 10 list. While I'm excited that they're sort of modernizing it and bringing it out of the sort of tank-controlled Dark Ages, I've also heard some people, kind of complaining about some of the demos that were like E3 and whatnot, so I'm a little concerned. And I've also never been a huge Resident Evil fan to begin with. We are getting a demo. September 18th, it is coming to both PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360. So, like I said, it's sort of, I can't call it good, I can't call it bad. It's just more of, we're going to find out the truth about this game together September 18th. On to some just straight up bad news. Now, Sony recently announced their full lineup for Tokyo Game Show. Now, this includes games like PlayStation All-Stars Battle Royale on both PS3 and Vita, both of the Assassin's Creed 3 games, Dust 514, Yakuza 5, Soul Sacrifice. Okay, some cool games. But you notice one missing. The Last Guardian. Still, nothing. It's been so long, people are leaving the team. The Last Guardian is sort of becoming the new Duke Nukem Forever. It's just spinning its way through development hell. And especially with this talk of maybe we're going to be getting some new consoles next year, you really got to be wondering, even though they've said, no, we're still developing it for current gen, gotta worry. And especially knowing the hype, man, if you turn that into a launch title for the PlayStation 4, that could really help sell a lot of units. But at the same time, the longer this goes, the more the hype builds up, the less likely this game can actually live up to the hype that's being generated. It just gets too hard when you have too many delays like this. So still, bad news, we're waiting for anything real and significant about The Last Guardian. Some more just straight up news. Now, Steam recently launched Greenlight. Now, that's actually some pretty cool news. It's this whole system where people can, it's not really crowdfunding, but it's a way for indie developers to get their games out there and get them exposure and get them sold, which is, really, really cool. It's a new system for them. Well, a game that was put on there, this is the real news I'm getting into, called Seduce Me by No Reply Games, was ripped from Steam Greenlight. Now, apparently this was like an erotic game that focused on American socialites, and it's actually made by a foreign developer. Now, personally, pixelated women have just never been my thing. That's just me. If it's your thing, cool, and enjoy that. But it's not for me. But what I think is so curious about this is, we have all these games with this just incredible levels of violence and adult themes and all this stuff, but sex? Now that's, we got to draw the line right there, right? Obviously, that's indecent. Dismembering people, that's fine and dandy. Throwing M rating on it. Sex, that's just too much. It's a little bit of a double standard. But, of course, in America, at least, that just exists across everything. So I really shouldn't be surprised. And with some genuinely good news, Valve recently put up a job listing for a hardware developer. Okay? Now, I think it was pretty obvious that Valve knew how sort of game journalists work and that we go and seeking out job postings to try and get hints about what companies are doing, because they put some information in there that's, it's really handy to us. They pretty much said that they want PC gaming to evolve and PCs to evolve. And if the hardware manufacturers aren't willing to do it, then Valve's just going to jump right in and do it for them. Now, they would rather not. Gabe Newell said he would much rather have established companies, for instance, like Razer or Mad Catz or Alienware, to innovate, to create that sort of innovation so that they don't have to. Companies that already have established distribution for hardware and a track record making hardware. But if all else fails, if things aren't advancing, things as simple as the mouse and keyboard, then Valve themselves are going to jump right in and help to evolve hardware. Because new hardware just means new games. It means new ideas. If there's, we're kind of limited to its mouse, keyboard, controller. Those are your real options right now. I mean, Razer had its little motion control thing, but that hasn't been the biggest hit. Kinect on PC really hasn't been used in gaming at all yet. So some sort of innovation, something to help spur some creativity in the gaming market. You can kind of see where this would just feed back in to help Valve. If they evolve PC gaming and bring more people over to it, then their digital distribution platform and the games they actually create are just going to do better and better and better. So that does it for the news this time. Now we're going to get into a little segment I haven't done in quite a while. The pull list. So, I'm going to talk comics. Well, sort of comics. Really, comic book movies. Now, some recent announcements have come out talking about a Justice League movie. Now, it's no leap of faith to imagine that DC Comics wants to do something like The Avengers. The Avengers is one of the most profitable movies of all time. It's huge. So, of course, DC has to look at all their characters and think, well, we've got to do Justice League. We've got to do the same thing. Establish all the big characters on their own, bring together these big actors into one movie together. Cool, right? Well, one piece of news that came out of this is they said when they do this movie, Batman, will be in it, of course. And then this will also serve as a prequel for a new Batman film franchise. Now, this shouldn't be shocking to people. I mean, Nolan's Batman trilogy has made just money upon money upon money and critical success. But, even think back to the 90s when you're talking about, the 80s and 90s with Tim Burton's Pear and Joel Schumacher's Horrible Things. Those made a lot of money too. Batman works well on the silver screen. People can relate to him. It's a man, granted he's a billionaire and a master detective and great at martial arts, but he's still just a guy with a lot of money and gadgets and things who's dealing with great loss. And that's something that we can all understand. That's why people relate to him so well. So it's no surprise they want to bring him back. But what I saw all over the internet were people just complaining, the venom, the hatred about, they're rebooting movies too quickly. Now, granted, with Spider-Man, I'll agree with you. It's a little quick for a reboot, I think. But then again, they couldn't get anybody back after that horrible third film. So they kind of had to start over. It's a little easier to explain than saying, we're just going to go on and pretend like it's all the same, even though it's completely new actors, new director, new everything. But for Batman, this makes sense. And I'm going to tell you why. Okay, let's talk about the DC universe. Now, Nolan's Batman was set very firmly in reality. Of course, it's over-the-top reality, but all the tech is real tech. That's why he didn't put giant fins on the tumbler, even though I kind of wish he had. I always liked that. Everything was sort of tried to be, you try to base it in reality. All these villains could exist. All these things could happen for the most part. All this tech is actually there. It's all bleeding edge, but it's actually there. Now let's talk Superman. Last son of a dead planet, gets to Earth, absorbs sunlight, and suddenly becomes pretty much godlike, invincible, just every power you can imagine. All right? The Flash. Lightning strikes his chemical lab, and suddenly he can move faster than literally the speed of light because he taps into a mystical force called the Speed Force. Martian Manhunter. Well, he's Martian for one. That should tell you something. Super strength, flight, invulnerability, he can phase through things, he's got psychic powers, he's just weak against fire. Crazy stuff, right? Green Lantern. Guy who gets an alien super ring that allows him to fly through space, create anything out of hard light constructs using his willpower and imagination alone. You can maybe see how these things don't jive with the DC universe, the Gotham City setting that Nolan created. Okay, there's a big disconnect there. The kind of Batman that fits with a Justice League has to be more over the top. He has to have some of the villains that we had no chance of seeing in Nolan's trilogy. Villains like Mr. Freeze, Clayface, Killer Croc, or Man-Bat. These are villains with superpowers. Batman doesn't have superpowers. None of the villains that we saw have superpowers. He didn't do the resurrection thing with Ra's al Ghul, for instance, because that's sort of a supernatural, that's an impossible thing. So he didn't touch that. He kept all these characters very grounded. And that's something you can't do if you're going to do Justice League. If you want that Batman to fit in with the mythos of those characters, you have to break. You have to reboot. You have to have a different Batman story. Nolan did a fantastic job. An incredible trilogy of Batman movies. Personally, The Dark Knight is my favorite movie of all time. but it's time for other Batman movies. And the animated series has proven you can have all the over-the-top crazy DC stuff and still have great Batman stories that people like to watch. So, get over it, take a deep breath, and realize if you want Justice League with Batman, you gotta reboot Batman. That's just the way it is. Alright, that does it for the pull list and this video. See you guys next time.